Trone is running again. He owns Total Wine and More. As you know, Trump held this office before. He gave up the seat to run for Senate back in 2024.
Now, Trone, of course, is the owner of Total Wine and More. John Duran is joining us live from Trone's campaign event. This is at the Steinhardt Brewing Company in Frederick, Maryland. Sounds like there's some activity behind you, John. What's happening?
Yeah, Leslie, supporters starting to file in. Doors opened up right at 8 o'clock. You know, this has become one of the most expensive primaries in the country, with both Trone and McClane Delaney spending about $32 million of their own money. Trone himself has self-funded approximately $25 million in that total in his bid to regain the seat he vacated for a Senate run last election cycle. The former three-term congressman and Total Wine and More co-owner is trying in the massive, diverse 6th district that spans parts of deep blue, suburban Montgomery County, and Democrat-leaning Frederick County through the more conservative rural western panhandle of this state. Trone and his opponent, McClane Delaney, have run several attack ads against one another during their campaigns. Trone's campaign has claimed McClane Delaney voted with Trump and MAGA Republicans 22% of the time. McClane Delaney disputes that framing and says she has the backing of Maryland's top Democratic leaders because of her work on issues Democrats care about. For Trone, he says the biggest issue tonight is who voters trust to take that fight back to Washington.
At stake is really fighting back against Donald Trump. I mean, we can't have a member of Congress that doesn't push back 100% of the time against Trump's initiatives that make absolutely no sense whatsoever. I've never lost a general because I cut across party lines, and folks respect the fact that you're a businessman, that you're self-made, and create a company across the United States. And so we always get some independents like crazy.
And again, McClane Delaney pushed back in an interview with WUSA 9, pointing to support from Governor Wes Moore as well as Maryland's Democratic congressional delegation. She says support shows she's the candidate focused on lowering costs, protecting rights, and fighting the Trump agenda. Leslie, Lorenzo.
Yeah, well, this race is significant, not just because of who they represent and what they need, but how much money has been really invested in this race. I mean, this is not just big for our community. I mean, they've spent a lot of national funds here.
He spent a lot of money for that Senate race, and then coming into it this time around, April McClain Delaney decided to use millions of her own money too.
$7 million of her own money. Yeah, we'll be watching this one. And speaking of April McClain Delaney, she is running to keep her seat for another term.
Yeah, Katie Lusso is at her campaign event at the Holiday Inn in Gaithersburg. Katie, what is it like there right now?
Yeah, and you know, the crowd has really started to get excited, and let me show you why, because Governor Wes Moore himself has just entered the room just moments ago. He is here with Lieutenant Governor Aruna Miller, and they are here to show their support to April McClain Delaney. You know, he has been very vocal that he is a supporter of hers. He was asked why he continues to support her and really gave her the endorsement, and he said she's a fighter, and he likes that about her. So, you know, he is not going to be speaking at this event from what we're hearing, but he is here to mingle. He's making several stops across Maryland to the different campaigning events. But, you know, he is here. He's showing his support, and he has been to several of her campaign events throughout the day, but also in the weeks that have passed. So let me tell you a little bit about April McClain Delaney. She is defending her seat in what many have called one of Maryland's most expensive and contentious political races. She is the incumbent here, and as I mentioned, she has received a lot of high-profile, big-name endorsements. Governor Wes Moore, Senator Chris Van Hollen, Senator Angela Alsobrooks, and Congressman Jamie Raskin. And she says that's important because it shows that Marylanders really stick together and Maryland leadership is working together. Now, a little bit about her personally. She is a Potomac resident, which, yes, is outside of District 6, but her opponent, David Trone, important to mention, also does not live in District 6, and that is not a requirement. She's also a mother of 4, an attorney, and at one point worked for the Department of Commerce. Her campaign, she told me earlier, focuses on what she calls common sense politics. She told me she has 3 big priorities here. She's fighting what she called an assault by the current administration on things like immigration, on women, the LGBT community, and she's also fighting for affordability. She says rising energy costs, housing, daycare, these are all things that she is going to be fighting for. in her words, continue fighting for. And she also wants to build trust in democracy, make sure there's not intimidation. This has been a very contentious race. We have seen so many attack ads, and we have talked a lot about those attack ads. This is an expensive race, as you heard John Duran mentioning, $32 million between the two of them, and a lot of that money was spent on those ads. She called those ads disappointing. She said that she really feels like this should not be the way Democrats are treating each other. I think it's also important to mention that at one point, her and David Trone were actually friendly. There are photos of them when they were, when she was initially running the first time around. There's photos of them hugging. She called this really disappointing that it has turned to such a contentious campaign between the two of them. But this is something she says she continues to lead with her heart. And she said that she actually, in her last campaign ad, she switched the narrative a little bit and decided she was going to move forward with kindness. She said it is upsetting and she's disappointed in the way that went, but she's going to continue to fight back and try to really fight for Maryland. Again, I want to go back to the fact that Governor Wes Moore is here. We are going to try to speak with him in a few moments, but he has been vocal about his support for her, and she has called that a really important moment. I know we've heard from David Trone where he has talked about not needing the endorsements of these other political leaders, but instead saying he has the endorsements of the people. Well, she says, again, that this just shows that they are a united front here in Maryland. So it'll be interesting to hear from him if we're able to talk to him in just a moment. And we'll play you some more of our interview with her a little bit later. But for now, let me send it back to you, Leslie and Lorenzo.
That Governor Moore knows how to draw a crowd of his own, right? So by showing up here to support April McClain Delaney, it's been really interesting. We've been talking with our experts, and we'll get them in the conversation in just a moment too, of why the governor chose this particular candidate to show up for. And maybe he'll make the rounds later in the day, but this is one of the early appearances.
Yeah, also hearing that response from Trone as well, basically saying I don't need the political establishment there to win this. I don't need your money either, clearly, but I can still make it happen. So a lot of folks they're waiting to see who's right, who comes out on top, huh?